Hello and welcome to the October 30th edition of the Bub Report. Last week, Grenada commemorated the events surrounding the 1983 invasion of the island by American and Caribbean forces as part of a bid to restore democratic rule to the island following the violent demise of the Grenada Revolution 6 days earlier. The military intervention formed part of a geopolitical mission by the United States to reduce the influence of Soviet Russia in the Western Hemisphere.
On Sunday, October 23rd, the United States received an urgent formal request from the 5 member nations of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to assist in a joint effort to restore order and democracy on the island of Grenada. We have taken this decisive action for 3 reasons. First, and of overriding importance, to protect innocent lives, including up to 1,000 Americans whose personal safety is, of course, my paramount concern. Second, to forestall further chaos. And third, to assist in the restoration of conditions of law and order and of governmental institutions to the island of Grenada, where a brutal group of leftist thugs violently seized power, killing the Prime Minister, 3 cabinet members, 2 labor leaders, and other civilians, including children.
I appreciate having you all around.
It wasn't for the Americans. We would have been having a hard time in Grenada.
Americans more or less had stopped them from coming in because they wanted the Grenadian to be free from communism and socialism.
The invasion very good. Look, God has sent you all, you know.
Grenadians are divided about the significance of the October 25th holiday. On the one hand, some say the holiday is unwarranted and is symbolic of American imperialism. On the other hand, people such as those imprisoned by the People's Revolutionary Government view the October 25th holiday as Liberation Day, since it signaled the end of their unconstitutional and illegal incarceration in prison. This week, we discussed the events surrounding October 25, 1983, from a former Revolutionary Era detainee. Also on the report, radio wars. Currently, many call-in programs and talk shows are aired and streamed on local radio in Grenada. In an era of the 24-hour news and broadcast cycle, some have expressed concerns that the evolution of radio into the digital sphere has brought with it a toxic culture of name-calling, violent rhetoric, and civility to the national body politic.
Mash dog, get out of my door! I can't see you!
Anybody who intend to send this nonsense with Daisy and them for me, don't send it for me.
Yeah, whole lot.
Because we've been saying that a very long time. And once you were saying that Daisy and them did not agree, there was routine and encouraging people to vote against anything.
About it is that the program is most part of the government.
What is it?
Don't release funds
what is it? Hello, what is it?
How can they get it?
What is it? They're part of what?
It's a government program.
Well, it's the word is not. What is it? Government.
Don't praise Mr. Deacon Mitchell to say XYZ. You check it out. Don't say what you say, Nick Kennedy, because you are too.
Don't tell me what to say. Don't tell me what to say. You say what you want to say, but don't tell me what to say.
No. You are too tiny.
Well, yes, that the point is that I will speak your language all the time.
Don't come here and talk to stupidness because you NDC and you come in and really use a supporter of NMP. Stop that stupidness now, and I don't like to hear.
All right, bye. Have a good night. Bye. Good night. Go and sleep, please. You need help about government. I know them nothing. Or what?
This week on our program, we discuss the evolution of radio in Grenada and the role that radio plays in shaping the national discourse on a myriad of issues, with 2 radio hosts and a community activist. We welcome our guest, talk radio host Kem Jones, community activist Saisha Williams, former political detainee Leslie Phillip, and broadcaster Aruna Neptune. We thank you for joining us. Last week, Ralston Glasgow delivered yet another judgment favoring an aggrieved Grenadian public servant. This time, it was a judgment involving former Supervisor of Elections Judy Benoit, who in late December 2013 took the previous administration to court, seeking a judicial review over how Governor General Dame Cecile La Grenade dismissed her from the public service. Benoit argued that her decision not to comply with a cabinet conclusion to integrate the regional EGRIP program into the electoral computer system infringes on the mandate of the Office of the Supervisor of Elections as established in the Grenada Constitution. She also sought damages from the state for wrongful dismissal. On all counts, the court sided with Benoit's argument, concluding that her firing was unconstitutional. Benoit joins a long list of public servants who were forced to take the previous government to court over wrongful termination and other constitutional breaches, smacking good governance in the face. From as far back as 1995, public servants were forced to seek judicial review over their illegal and unconstitutional dismissals from government. The cases involving other public servants, Gemma Bain Thomas, Richard Duncan, Willen Thompson, and Dr. Brian Francis, all appear to have one common denominator, and that one common denominator is bad decision-making in governance. The result of such bad decision-making at the highest level of government also reflects poorly on the ability of the Office of the Attorney General to resolve these matters out of court through a methodical and efficient dispute resolution process involving public servants. These judgments do not consider the cost of private litigation to the taxpayers in matters dating back as far as 1995 in the Dipcon case versus the Attorney General. Grenadians back then were forced to pay 17 million EC dollars when the court ruled that the government of Grenada was in breach of contract by terminating the agreement the state had in place with the engineering firm. In this period of heightened inflation, with predictions of a 2023 recession on the horizon, public policy experts tend to be quick to lecture the citizens about prudent financial management and spending. The citizens of Grenada should therefore challenge the state to practice what they preach, and that they should practice good governance, so that the taxpayers of the country would not have to continue to foot the bill over their bad decisions. Last week on October 25th, the national community in Grenada celebrated the Thanksgiving holiday to commemorate the American military invasion of Grenada. While Maurice Bishop and progressive sympathizers view this holiday through the lens of imperialist overreach, those who were unconstitutionally and illegally imprisoned and tortured at the Richmond Hill prison and in other locations, such as Hopevale, view this holiday differently. In fact, these detainees, such as the late Leslie Phillip and Lloyd Noel, former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas, former politician Winston White, Jerry Romaine, and other sympathizers of the Gary regime, are grateful for the October 25th holiday. Political scientist and retired Professor Ken Budo, writing about the undemocratic excesses of the Grenada Revolution in 1983, said, quote, "During the period of rule, there was no attempt to legitimize their position through elections. Presumably, the new constitution would have been the forerunner to national elections. The government faced much criticism from within the region and internationally as a consequence. Dissent was more muted at home. Many would argue that this was a consequence of the intimidating presence of the People's Revolutionary Army. Practically as well, leaders of dissent were probably all in jail. There were about 100 political detainees by October 1983, few had been charged with crimes, and even fewer had gone to trial, unquote. The Bob Report is now joined by one of those political detainees who has a different view of the Grenada Revolution and a different view of October 25th. We welcome our first guest for this week's program, Mr. Leslie Phillip. Mr. Phillip, welcome to the Bob Report.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I'm very happy to give my side of the story.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Phillip, tell us about the day you were arrested by the People's Revolutionary Government. Do you remember the circumstances that led to your arrest, sir?
Well, up to now, I'm still trying to find out. On 15th of October, 1979, I was home with my mom, and about 5:30, I heard knocking on my door. Come out with your hand in the air. I came outside and I saw the PRA. They say, you're going with us. Me alone. When they brought me to the church, I saw Winston White and a few others. And as far as they start going down, you had to see Malcolm and Twine. Take one down there. And we went down and was straight to Richmond Hill prison. We arrived in the prison about 7:38. 7:30 to 8 o'clock that morning. I was inside there, just the names. Stanley Cyrus, Rasta Nandang, and many others who I never see before. I didn't even know these people. And I wondered what were we there for? Kenny Lalsin, me and Kenny Lalsin and others, his James, quite a few of us. They had a special place prepared for us in Sea Landing. They brought us in that part of the jail. And everybody was asking, what were we doing here? By 12 o'clock news, we heard on the radio, in the market, the whole 15 counter-revolutionary people trying to overthrow the government of the People's Revolutionary Government. And they asking what to do with them. I mean, for you to sit down in prison and hear people say, kill them, hang them. One person who said, give them a fair trial. And the prison officers, everybody was in shock because everybody came different time from different places. How could you say they meet us going on with arms and ammunition? Nobody asked, where is the arms? Where is the ammunition? What happened? And there you had me inside it for 3 years, 2 months, and 1 day. My mother died. I was not even able to see her grave, even to go. I'm in Grenada, and my mother died. And many other mothers. I saw men die in jail. And all you hear, all the good things about it, Maurice Bishop and the revolution was this and that, the other and thing. We were never charged. I was able to be with people like Dr. Artway, Dr. Japal, and enough men, Tillman Thomas, like Noel, Leslie Pierre.
So tell us, you were arrested there in October 79. What was your relationship with the Gary regime, with the regime of former Prime Minister at the time, Sir Eric Matthew Gary?
Well, I was a police before. I was a police officer. And I'm from Montreal. That was the only reason I could suspect. Because they make sure that every house in Montreal, somebody from a house in Montreal was in prison. Even murdered. The Muslim boys and them murdered in front of the family. Once you're from Montreal, you're going to jail. No charge.
Yeah, so Is it a case that, because of course the other side would say that they arrested people who were affiliated with the Mongoose gang, they were arrested people who were affiliated with the Green Beast and Gary's secret police agents. What do you say to that argument? Were you, sir, a part of any of those organizations, or would you say that you were just part of the rank and file of the Royal Grenada Police Force at the time?
Part of the rank and file of the Royal Grenada Police Force. The real Mongoose gang they're talking about was the militia and the PRA, the secret police. They were the real Mongoose gang. These people created the situation to justify the revolution. If you were there after they start jailing their own people, you will hear all the crimes they committed and blame it on the Mongoose gang, so that nobody would have picked up the guns to fight for Gary, because you hear he was the Soviet man, he killing police. You know, remember Ivy Bishop was missing. Months after, why did they investigate Ivy Bishop? Why didn't he investigate the bishop that was found in the fridge in Palmis? Why didn't he investigate the death of Scatilda Noel, one of their own? Was she died in an accident, or she was killed before and threw over a precipice? You know, those are the things. Who burned GBU, Grenada Broadcasting Unit? We know who. Who burned the Ministry of Agriculture? We know who. Who used to be going and burn down the bookhands so that the estate owners will give them money and blame it on the Mongoose gang and those things on them. They were the real Mongoose gang. Because at least, if them boys do something, they have a trial. Who have no respect. Take a man like Dr. Atway, Dr. Joppal, and put him in a cell, and I watched Dr. Joppal dying and crying for help. And we ask all big people to please give him a little oxide to breathe. They never did. One little fella who was looking not up to his mind came and put Dr. Joppal outside and stayed with him. He never pointed the gun at him, stayed with him until daylight. And before the next day, they sent him to the prison and they sent him to the hospital. That's why when I came back in the police force, I was able to do the boys club, take people from the mental home and get them back on track, because I understand, you know, not how big you are, but who could really help you. You know.
Yeah. So tell us about. You said a lot of people in the Mount Rich area were arrested by the People's Revolutionary Government. What was it about that particular area of the country? My understanding from academicians and scholars who have studied Grenada, they said that, of course, in Grenada, if you look at Grenada through a particular regional lens, people in the north of the island, like in St. Patrick's, they tend to have a more negative view of the revolution, as opposed to people on the eastern side and on the southern sides of the island. What was it about that part of Grenada that caused the PRG to target you guys?
Because they was afraid of Gary, and in that area was a Gary stronghold. This was the area in which Gary helped people. I remember as a little boy, Gary was teaching us how to eat with knife and fork. Never known today I was eating with prime ministers, how to use a knife and fork. You know, we remember Gary. I know what we passed through on the estate, and Gary take the lands from the estate, give it back to the people. People used to work from 6 to 6. I know about that, my mom. And Gary were able to lift up that people, take them out from where I saw a lady make 1 month in prison for a daughter picking up 1 coconut. So the people that love Gary up there, so they want to make sure that nobody get away from Montreal. Ethelbert John, poor innocent man, he went to the prison. They just picked him up and they brought him to the prison. He remained there. I was right there with him. And he just said, Lord, you see and you knows all things. I am innocent. what have I done? What have I done? And the man just stretched on the bed, and it's a dead man. That's when they get to know that his son was detained in Hopeville and escaped. You know, so Montreat had something to do. They didn't trust anybody in Montreat. For what reason? Them alone know. Because we know Expo 69, Easter Water Parade, we know about the School of Med. We also know when Gary talked about the UFO and they try to say that he tried to make OBR, we know that he wanted a research center here. What is it, researching the UFO. Look, America spending now. I went to School of Medicine a while ago. When you look at it. So if people had love Gary, they are right. But the people with the estates and the big fellas and them, they didn't want to. They were able to finance those secret agents of the revolution. Revolution didn't just start in March 79. It marched a long time. Fellas went and trained all the way and come back. The good and propaganda, you know, very, very good. Make you believe that they create the situation to justify the revolution. So when it comes, nobody pick up no gun, you know, and nobody fight. And with peaceful revolution, they said, then why 3,112 people passed through Richmond in prison as detainees? 3,112 in a little island like Grenada.
Now, talk to us, Leslie, about due process. As you said before, you did not have a right to a lawyer while you were in jail. Neither were you brought to the courts for a hearing during that time. Were you allowed visitors, family members? Could family members come and visit you in jail? Did you get the opportunities to even ask for a lawyer during that time, to ask for legal representation? What kind of communication did the PRG have with you around those issues at that time?
Well, we had two visits a month. Sometimes one, sometimes we don't have, all depends on the state at the time. You know, and you have two letters. They got to read that letter first before they send it out to you, to your family. You imagine that they bring you an orange and an officer named Palmer. You should be cutting that orange to see what's inside it. God knows. You know, the only thing you have to keep you in jail is a detention order which was signed by no other than Maurice Bishop. And they keep you in jail for that, and you don't know when you're coming out. You know, so you had nobody to represent you. Before any lawyer outside you talk to, this lawyer would end up in Richmond in prison. If somebody going to write something on the newspaper, they will end up in Richmond in prison. And in the country we were saying free Grenada, free Radio Grenada, and everything was free. The only thing that was really free in Grenada was the jail. So when you come out, it's another nightmare. You are scared. And I was a police in 1979 during the revolution in St. Paul's. I was there. And my biggest gripe were people who you arrest before, bringing people in the station, usually police, you know. And they bring in men and tell you, hold that day for me. Putting people in the cell. Next morning, all policemen afraid to let them go because afraid to deem as a counter.
So yeah. Talk to us about March 13th, 1979. Of course, you were a police on the morning of March 13th, 79. I suspect you were stationed at, you said, that the St. Paul's police station. Walk us through that process when you got to the realization that there was an overthrow that was happening in the country.
I slept in Hopeville that night. Me and Godwin Pice, the two drivers, one in, one out. So I have to relieve him. So I left Oakville that morning early, coming up to relieve Godwin Pies City so he could go home as the driver, fire in True Blue. So he drove down to True Blue, and they killed him right in his stretch. The man was unarmed, and they killed him there. So when I get there, we heard about it, and we do nothing with nothing we could have done. And they came to the station. One car was driven by Mr. Bido, who will become the commissioner after. You know, they take the gun and we stay there. Nothing we could do. And then I asked for a transfer from St. Paul's to Union. And on the 12th of October, they called me in Union and said, look, they need to see me at the police station in Central. So I went down to Central. When I reached there, I meet Cosmos Raymond and one named Mason, still around, Mr. John. And they said, look, he coming. So I said, what happened? The man gave me a charge and said to me that I was not in barracks, was absent from barracks, and I caused the sergeant. So I simply asked him if he searched all about for me. He said, yes, I did. And he was nowhere wrong. I said, if I'm nowhere wrong, how could I cause the sergeant? So he said, I don't know, but I would recommend you dismissal to the Commissioner of Police, James Clarkson. So he went, and he come back and he tell me, you dismissed from the Royal Grenada Police Force. So I find that was very fishy. So they gave me my uniform. I went up to Union. I went home Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning. I'm in prison. Spent 3 years, 2 months and a day. And I came back out until that God blessed day when the American came. And that's when we actually free.
Yeah. So before we get to that, so stick a pin there about the Americans, because we will get to that shortly. But let us talk about the conditions under which you were held in prison. We have heard stories about detainees being tortured. We've heard stories about just very deplorable conditions at the prison at the time, that a lot of the prisoners were just packed into very small spaces. Could you talk to us about the conditions that you experienced while you were at the Richmond Hill prison?
Well, whilst I was in the prison, I was in a cell with 5 of us, myself, Kenneth Larson, and his James, and a few others. And then all of a sudden, they came and said, there was another coup, and I'm involved in it. I'm in prison. So they took me and Kenny Larson and they brought us down to Terrace with this guy who was interviewing me and asked me about Ravine and the coup. And I said, I don't know anything about that. With the one pants and shirt that we had, they take me and Kenny Larson and they bring us up the fort. And there we were in a little room which used to be the credit union room on the fort.
Which fort is that? Was that Fort George or Fort Frederick?
Fort George.
Okay.
And we were in a room. See, I could remember some of the guys, like me, Kenny Larson, Dr. Japal, Dr. Atwi, Jerry Rumin, Winston de Ravinier. Man, a whole lot of us on one bed. So when you sit down on the bed, you lean back. So we couldn't lie down. Everybody sit down on the bed and take a lean and give somebody else stand up and take your waist. And 18 hours gone. No food, not a bath. We inside it. And I remember when Kennedy Budlal came in and he said, Doctor, how things? Doc said, look, we're going to almost 2 days now, we ain't get nothing to eat, and we didn't have a shower. And I saw that man's face change. And he went up to the barracks, And the next thing they came back down with some food. Got a shower. And they brought us up again to that little room with all of us in there, and that's where Doc could not breathe. And he was going and called me scales, you know. He dropped again, you know. I said, Doc, what's that? He said, my pulse. I said, how much is it supposed to be? 72. How much it is? He said, 52. And that's when we begged people to put the guy outside, to give him a little breathe outside to survive. Because we inside that place, it's so hot. If I say anybody hit me, they didn't hit me. I know men get blows, I know men, Mikey James and all the fellas and them, but me personally, they didn't. And then
So you heard stories about people being beaten and tortured?
A lot of stories. One named Mikey Mack from Montreach. They shook that man in his foot, put him down in a drain, cover him right up, and then they brought him down to the fort. And thanks of this woman, Nurse Gittens, take him and bring him into the hospital. They know that. They make that man bring a rocket launcher from Montreach, pass all through players and fall down. You're dead. And he had to do it. You know. I mean, I would like them to speak for themselves. I would like for them to speak for themselves. I don't want to speak for them. But there is so many wrong things that happen in that country, and they try to keep it down. There's plenty heroes outside it. There's plenty people like Ralph Thompson. Ralph Thompson was one of the guys with the loudest mouth. He was in the prison. And when you go to D Landing, you can see people listening to him by Regal Cinema. And they silence him. He died. You know. So everybody know. I mean, the young people, the people want to change the holiday. They was maybe just 2 years old in the revolution. You know. And they never think about the other people. What happened to them? What happened to their parents? How they feel? People cry, people run away. Leave this country and go. My brother had to leave. Everybody gone. My mother died. When I get back in the house, to sleep in the night is a problem. Because if a vehicle stop, you believe they're coming for you again. The only time that horror's done is when the American came on the 25th of October. This thing done. Because they let me go before, and I had to go back to school, political school and farming, and I had to do it. I have no choice. So
let us talk, Leslie. Let us talk about October 25th. Obviously, you were detained, so I'm not too sure how much information you were getting about what was happening on the outside in relation to the tensions that existed with the People's Revolutionary Government. But when did you realize that the PRG regime collapsed and that you guys were going to be freed, and your freedom was the result of American and Caribbean invading forces?
No, I was already freed before the intervention.
Oh, you were. So when were you freed precisely?
I freed in 82. Yeah.
Okay.
I was already freed, so, and I ended up going and work with the government on the Montreal farm. And I knew the tension was building up because, and they start teaching us and educating, and I found the way how they was going. Me and the principal were able to talk and said, look, you know what? Something happened. And then we tell our people, do not go down to St. George's. They asked us to go. I said, do not go. We put sick and don't go. And when I heard what happened down there, man, I sing and I dance and I jump for joy. That was the best thing I believe could ever happen to Grenada. And that holiday should remain in place. And there are a lot of people down here who knows they're still living. And Bob, you know one thing about it is that what hurt me a lot, after all these years, from 1979 to 2022, there are people living here and they know all the truth, where they bury who, where they born who they kill, whatever it is, and they still lying. Imagine that you heard a man talking about, oh, the thief election and that's what caused the revolution and what he did and what he do and all what causes the revolution. Greed for power, that's one, and they wanted to spread their ideology in the Caribbean. That revolution just come like to say, okay, it was Gary. They know Gary was loved by the people and we have to get him, but we'll make sure we get rid of people like Innocent Belma, and then to break the moral of the police, Maurice Bishop went missing. So, and you say, Gary get rid of Maurice Bishop because he saw the Mongoose gang breaking couple on it. Which was worse, the Mongoose gang or the PRA? Or the People's Militia? Which was worse? Everyone had a gun.
But Mr. Phillip, some might say that Sir Eric Matthew Gary was no saint, and that the revolution would not have happened had it not been for Sir Eric Matthew Gary's excesses in power and the way that he intimidated people. And given the economic state of Grenada at the time, this is of course not to justify the undemocratic takeover of a government, but certainly that is the argument that the other side would make. What do you think about that argument?
They will have to wait. The election wasn't far. If they win they was going to win the election. You couldn't be our opposition leader on the 12th of March and by the 13th of March you become the prime minister. You know, nobody ever contests and say, look, that election, can we call the UN because that election was stolen? No, they never do that. They created the situation to justify it. I'm not saying that Gary didn't have some faults. I didn't say that there was some mistake that was made between some people abused power in any way. But the amount of things that we know that they do because they tell us, because they start jailing their own people. When they start jailing their own people, and when a man telling you what he done, and now they didn't trust them now and they start putting them in jail. Because when they release us now, they start releasing the people who they believe was a threat. We were no threat. They were their own threat. So they start bringing their own people. You know, look at Tillman Thomas Good. And tell me how Tillman Thomas Good look at a counter-revolutionary. Look at when a man even become the prime minister. Look at him. You know, Light Noel, Leslie Pierre. You know, look at businessman like Kenny Larson. Look at his people. How could we say that this man was counter and Gary was out of the way, so we have to get rid of Gary? These people, Gary listened to much people. So he had good policemen who trained with the MI5, so that man was able to get people to infiltrate and go and give Gary news and transfer them fellas. So they make sure that the force was very weak. So they could just walk in. That's all. Nobody pull up a gun, nobody fight, nobody do anything. Why didn't he call the election 2 years after? Why didn't he call the election 3 years after? No way they was going to call the election in that country here. No way. Central Committee was going to do it.
So your theory of the case, recently we heard the Minister of Culture, Ron Redhead, who incidentally is also the son of Martin Redhead, who was very involved in the Grenada Revolution. They announced October 19th as a public holiday. How do you think that holiday should be celebrated? Certainly, the families of those who died on that day, I'm sure, would welcome that holiday, but that holiday, I believe, should also take into consideration all of the deaths and the tragedies that occurred from the 70s right up to that period. What are your thoughts around the October 19th holiday?
Well, I'm not in for that at all, you know. You know, I think Ron is very young. I mean, and his father, if you look at him, he almost looked like Maurice. You know, 2 years old. So, you know, they talk about reconciliation. I would love to reconcile. But I would like people to come out and speak the truth. Ask these people to come out and speak the truth. The truth in history, what really take place. And then we could welcome the holiday. You know, tell us what really take place. All the wrong things, all the fires they burn, all who kill, all what they do. Let us know. So we all forgive. I can forgive you that my mother died and you never let me go and see her. My sister died. Imagine that. They took away every radio and water. And we happened to sneak in a radio. And then somebody told me, look, my sister, we heard the news that my sister died. And I can't cry, I can't say anything. I can't even tell the authority because they want to know how we know that. I had to wait until Russell Budlaw came from tongue in court. And when he come back up, go and tell the chief, you know, I understand my sister died, you know. And the man pick up the phone in my presence. That man supposed to be almost...
Just lean back, sir. We are not seeing your face. Well. There you go. Much better. Go ahead and talk. Yeah. Go ahead.
That man supposed to be a church man. Pick up the phone and telling me he called Lacroix and he called Atway and they don't have that body there. When I know my sister is in Atway. The commissioner of police, which was Mr. Pat McLeish, said to me, boy, I know it is to lose your mother. I'll let you go to the funeral. The day, he said, I don't know anything about that. So when after the intervention, they called us back in the police force, and when I go, I saw the commissioner of police is Mr. McLeish. And I said, not me, I cannot join in front of you. I can't hold a Bible in front of you. You evil. So I went back and walked on the and went back into the where I stayed until I retire. You know, and after I retire, I make sure that I try to educate as much people, young people, as possible. You may have my record about the Police Boys Club, the lawyer, you know, treat everywhere I go. I was able to do that and make them respect, try to get back some respect that what we lost in 79. So going back to that as a holiday, no, even in this time that they just get into power there, I think that they should hold back a little bit. People are still bleeding. Put up a white flag. People are still bleeding because you refresh every memory in the minds of those people who was hurt. Let the history go and show the good, the bad, and the ugly. He was a baby at the time. His father was right up. You know.
Yeah. Mr. Phillip, this was very fascinating and interesting. And of course, if you can also direct me to other people who were detainees. I mean, we know the famous ones, Tillman Thomas, Lloyd Noel, Teddy Victor, who also supported the revolution. He was also imprisoned. Winston White, you know, but this is so very important because I certainly believe that all sides of a story need to be told. There is your side, my side, and the truth. So as we go to the next segment of the program, do you have any final closing comments?
Yes. I would like to see some reconciliation, but on all sides. All sides. Get together with all the detainees, you know, and let it get a side of the story. If you had to write a book on both sides. You know, only so. Visit Montreat. So many deaths in Montreat. You remember the guy get bullet right in his leg, fall on the ground in front of his family, and was murdered right in front of his family. You know, he could have been captured. You know, another two were shot cold dead right there. You know, which they could have captured them. You know, and many more, many more. You know, right now my mind is just at the wrist. You know, my mind sort of race. I seen many men cry inside of that place, lock up. You don't know when you're going. Have to know the time by when the bell ring. Bread, morning and evening. The only time you get piece of meat, it's Christmas Day. You know, that was the only time. So it's hard for all of us, but I came and I went back in the police force and I didn't seek any revenge. I went and see Lester Redhead, he's still my good friend. I went and see Selwyn Strand was in the prison. I went and see Hudson Austin before he died and tap him on the shoulder, you know, and tell him to take it easy because I know how it is. So show them that I have no feelings against them. Me and enough of them fellas and them are good friends. He was leading all them fellas, we still meet high. You know, but I don't like this thing of just Maurice, Jacqueline Curve, and a few of the big elite. Go down to the small ones. Go down to the small ones.
Absolutely. Mr. Phillip, it was such a pleasure having you here on the Bob Report. And we would certainly want to have you back again because we believe you have so much information to share about that period that a lot of young people are not aware of. And we believe a platform such as this avails people of the opportunity to talk about the comprehensive retelling of the stories of the period in the 70s leading up right to 1983. Thank you, Mr. Leslie Phillip.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Mr. Leslie Phillip. Leslie Phillip was one of those who was detained during the period of the Grenada Revolution by Maurice Bishop's People's Revolutionary Government. His detention went on from 1979 to 1982, but there were several other hundreds of detainees who were also detained at the Richmond Hill prison, as well as at a facility in Hopevale in St. George's that details and documents several human rights abuses and violations during that period by the PRG. And at this time, we will take a quick break and we will be back with the panel segment of the week. Please stand by. The next segment of the Bub Report comes to you compliments S.A. Johnson Funeral Home. They are a Caribbean family-owned funeral service. They offer a full range of funeral services at affordable prices in New York City. They can be reached on 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
These are the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say, a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this...
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
Viewers and listeners, we wish to welcome you back to this the Sunday episode of the Bub Report. Now, for the panel segments of the week, we will delve into the evolution of new media in Grenada. The new media environment is dynamic, and it continues to develop in novel, sometimes unanticipated ways that shapes how we communicate in 2022. New media on radio have radically altered the way that government institutions operate, the way that people and politicians communicate, the manner in which elections are contested, and the manner in which citizens engage. This segment will examine this evolution of new media on radio before examining in greater detail their role in and consequences in national life. Here to make sense of these issues are community activist Mr. Saisha Williams. We also have joining us this week Aruna Neptune of the Ladies Room, and we also have joining us Mr. Kem Jones of Vision Information Services. Panel, welcome to the Bub Report.
Good night.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, this program is being aired on Sunday, so we would let the viewers know, of course, that it is being pre-recorded, so it will be morning when they are listening to the program. But panel, I want to begin by talking about the evolution of Grenada. And I want to begin with you, Aruna, as someone who has been in what we consider to be traditional media for as long as you have been. Talk to us about that evolution and how is it different from, let's say, a decade ago?
Well, again, thank you so much for the invitation, Kellen. It's always good to be on the Bob Report, and hello to everyone viewing and following along. Definitely a pleasure to be here. So I think it was only 2 days ago I was having this conversation with someone regarding, when I started in radio and where we are now, and compared to where we are now. And one of the things that jumped out at me was how much things have changed. Technology, the way we broadcast, the way we stream now, it's so different from when, I started almost 20-something years ago. Back then, we had the TDK cassette players that you would have to put in and make sure you mark your spot and you're able to rewind and play your advertisements, etc. You were reading from actual script, paper in hand, and not so much computers that came along after. Everything was pretty much, there was more preparation. You had to do more research. You had to prepare yourself before you went on air. And one of the things that I am grateful for was back in the day, well, at least when I started, and I must say thanks to folks like Roy T. Jones and Paul Roberts and the likes, who are professionals and who went about it by the book. So then it wasn't a case of, I have a voice, I want to be on radio. You had to be able to speak, your grammar had to be on point, and you had to be prepared. You had to have a knowledge of what's happening in the world, whether it's social issues, whatever it is. And you had to be able to read, one of the most important things that they stressed on. So it wasn't a case of just going on the air, saying my name, giving the time, bigging up folks. I actually had to come every day with paper, pen, write what I was going to say since the day before, and have to show these gentlemen before I was allowed to go on air. And I couldn't stray from the script. Whatever was on that paper, I had to actually read, but, ad-lib, make it sound like I'm just, there's no paper in front of me, basically. So from then to now, there's been a lot of changes. Now on the radio is practically anybody who says, you know what, I can talk, you're on radio, whether I can read, whether I can do whatever, I'm on radio. So that was one of the things that really, really jumped out at me. Plus, like I said, the technology that we're using a whole lot of now. Who would have thought we would be sitting here live streaming? Radio back then seemed like the only thing there was. There wouldn't be any other way to get the messages across, any other way to communicate, any other way for people to hear you. That was the only thing you knew back then, radio. So with so many different platforms now, in some ways there are advantages and there are disadvantages, but I guess we get into that as we move.
We will definitely get into that. Now, let me bring in Mr. Jones here. Now, Mr. Jones, you got into radio, talk radio in particular, through political activism. Now, after you parted ways with the New National Party, I don't know whether they kicked you out or whether you left voluntarily. We can get into that, of course. But how and why did radio become the avenue through which you became politically active?
Right. Thank you very much, Kellon. Let me see that I got involved in radio when I was employed with the government of Grenada, specifically disaster management. I did quite a bit in terms of interviews and TV, somewhat, GIS back and forth, bringing the message of comprehensive disaster management and involving young people in that. In terms of me continuing, right? So after government, I decided I will continue to reach people through radio and social media. I cannot talk like Arona because I'm kind of young in this business, right? So
you think you're young in this business?
Well, social media was already there, right?
Okay.
Platform and easy access and so on.
Yeah.
But just saying, I got involved because there was a void. You had plenty people in mainstream who were actually pushing somewhat one kind of line, one narrative, going in one direction. So there was this void for a different voice, somebody who could take on the status quo, take on those at the helm. And that block was a huge block, meaning from the little polls that were done, that number was very huge. So I tapped into that, created that kind of base and personality. And it was not just radio per se, but being involved in quite a bit. And then people got to know, there's a voice. Kem Jones on radio, Kem Jones on social media, Kem Jones all about the place where you can access him, right? And, I always say to people, Dr. Bob, it is no longer radio with batteries. You go to some shop in the village and get some pen light battery or whatever battery, and you have radio and you fight for some frequency. It is now using the technology. So a good friend met me. She's about what, 80 something. She said, Kem Jones, I ain't hearing you. She said, well, I have my iPad. So she has an iPad and she's on TuneIn looking for the radio station there, right? Where can I find Kem Jones? So the technology has evolved and more people are able to access the different talk radio programs. So if I want to hear Arona, for example, all I need to do is to go on my smartphone and I click Power FM and I can go straight in the ladies' room without using a key, right? So the platform, the access and those things, it's really, really good in my view. And I'm able to reach an audience that, really I don't have to pay much for. It's there, so
Right.
beautiful.
But you said there was a void. You said there was a void, and that mainstream media, of course, perhaps you might put me in that category of mainstream media too, has been pushing a particular one-sided narrative, if you may, but that there was also a void. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Right. So it was very clear. We had a party in power for 13 and a half years straight, right? And they were powerful. You had the NDC who was trying to get out there the message and so on. They lost in 2013. The NNP came back and there was no one really articulating the message of the NDC or any other party, but instead you were hearing the government, the NNP. So even if the NNP was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, you were not hearing that because nearly all the radio stations, they somewhat were loyal to government. Maybe they got some concession. Maybe those hostesses and hosts, they had some kind of connection with them, maybe some training, maybe some kind of opportunity. I'm not saying that all, but the majority. So as a result, you just couldn't hear the other side of the argument. So the government would say, well, we're going to do this, but you were not hearing anybody saying, but if you do this, this would happen. It would affect this person, this group, this organization, this team. So that void was created where Kem Jones came in and he said, let's look at the issue of pension, for example. Let's look at politicians and what they're getting. Let's look at the price of gasoline and diesel. Let's look at cost of living. Let's look at, what is happening, corruption, nepotism. I was bringing the issues to the fore because there were people out there who are not hearing that. If you tune into the radio up north, you get a kind of NNP flavored content. You tune into Central, Arona, I think you used to be there, right? Right? You kind of get that flavor. GBN from time to time, and even on social media, you would hear the Sheldon Scott, for example. And so there was a serious void for somebody to come in and be frank, be plain, be straight up, although people knew where Kem Jones was standing at the time, politically and otherwise, where he support, who he support and where that lies. It was very clear and people were looking for that. Someone who is frank, honest, real, say it as it is, using different kind of, words and language to describe certain things that Grenadians understand, both home and abroad. So that void was created, and I took full advantage of it. And I'm still here.
All right. Yes, you are. Certainly, people, you have significant viewership and listenership. Whatever people may think of you, certainly people have very strong views where you are concerned, but yeah, they can't take away from the fact that you do have that strong viewership and listenership, both via social media and on radio as well. So let me bring in Mr. Williams here. Saisha, you coming to this from a different perspective, just as somebody who is making observations. Now, let me begin by asking you, would you say that you are more of a new media consumer in the way that you consume news in Grenada, or are you more of the traditional media consumer that perhaps you watch you watch the GBN news at night to 7 o'clock as a particular generation would do? How do you consume media?
Good night, first of all, and thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I think it's more of the new media. I must say, watching GBN can give you a headache. Work needs to be done on everything in terms of GBN personally. I found myself listening to the new media because of how it's presented. And how, I guess, messages are brought across. When I first came home, I started listening to the brother on the show, Ken, Sheldon Scott, Aruna, Andre Donald. And in listening to the presentation from each one, I started noticing something. And over time, the drumbeat has gotten louder. So my perspective on this media thing is not necessarily the old versus new per se, and because to me, both of them can reach the audience they need to reach. I think it's how new media, or even talk radio specifically in Grenada, is utilized. And if we're not careful, it can lead to very, very, very dangerous things happening in Grenada. That's my perspective.
Expand and we would expand on that. We will get into that. But of course, Aruna, I'm going to bring you back here because recently there was a dust-up where you were concerned on social media in terms of rhetoric and in what people were saying. There was always a back and forth. Do you think that talk radio, in many respects, contributes to a coarsening of the rhetoric in society?
Some way, so, because people sometimes don't differentiate between the two. They think it's one and the same. So if you are whatever platform, whether you're doing it via Facebook or you're on radio, people tend to look at it, okay, she's on radio, so I'm gonna hold her to this particular standard. She's supposed to be that corner and should not be able to have any other opinion on anything else, should not be able to express herself, but they see it as just you being on radio. So numerous times, you try to stay silent and not get too involved in the process, but it's hard because you have a place like everyone else. The space belongs to all of us and you can use it as you see fit. But it's a sort of balancing act sometimes in what you engage in and what you don't engage in. And it's a tough call sometimes because I know, like myself and even yourself, Dr. Bob, we are opinionated. We love giving our thoughts on different topics or whatever the case might be. But people sometimes think, okay, well, you should not be involved because you're supposed to be that or you're supposed to be this. But like I said, there needs to be a separation and people need to understand there's a separation of the two. the Aruna on the radio is not the Aruna on social media, because on social media, I'm not as censored as I am on radio. Social media gives us the will to express yourself freely. And they do promote that, although there are certain words you can't use, whatever, and you're censored. But it's less than when you're on radio. There's a lot of things you could go on social media and cause obscenities. You can't do that on radio. So, sometimes I just think it's unfair. And it also creates a division, because you feel like you're being pulled in one side, you're being pulled on the other side, and you're in the middle trying to figure out, okay, which direction should I go? So I do that in some ways.
But to pick up on what Saisha is saying here, who do you think is responsible for that? Do you think that the audience influences that kind of division, or do you think that the radio hosts sometimes contribute to that?
I think both. I think it's both. But but of course, the audience is bigger than the radio host. The radio host is only one person, but the audience could be thousands of people listening and viewing. And if you're not strong-willed enough, if you don't have that willpower, you could be pulled in all sorts of directions. Because myself, Kem, we're no stranger to being attacked. We're no stranger to getting words flung at us left, right, and center in public, in our inbox, fake profiles, all sorts of directions you get it from. So while yes, hosts and hostesses, whatever, may contribute to it, I think sometimes a lot of it has to do with the audience, the listening and the viewing public, because sometimes things that aren't even meant to be taken seriously. It's for example, last Saturday, as a matter of fact, I attended an event at the stadium, and something I said in jest, because the show was, of course, targeting a youthful audience. But to me, if you're a person who likes going out, whether it's for youths, it never said only youths are allowed to attend this event. It's an event that is, promoted, advertised for everyone. So I went to the event, and usually when I go to events, I like going to the VIP area, because it's more convenient. The bathroom, the food, parking, everything is more convenient. So I went to the event, and I was really surprised at the amount of young people that I saw in the VIP, and it wasn't exactly $100 show. I think the VIP tickets was $500, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised. So I made a post saying, I can't believe there were so many young people in the VIP. And it was almost like you went to a harvest, but it was a VIP harvest, and there were so many children here. And people literally took that, ran with it, and made it into something else, like, okay, I should not be there because I'm too old to be there. So sometimes I think the audience definitely plays a part in fueling a fire that isn't even meant to be a fire in the first place.
Saisha, what do you think of that? Do you think that it's, as Aruna saying, that where we are in terms of the rhetoric and being careful with the rhetoric is both a combination of what the nature of society, in addition to perhaps the people who are delivering those messages? What are your thoughts?
I agree on both. However, there is a word, leadership. When you have that mic, when you're the person in control of that mic, to me, you have a responsibility that's a bit higher than the quote unquote crowd or the masses. The crowd can be swayed to anything, literally anything. However, if you have a constant position where you have a mic in front of you all the time and you're espousing a specific message, the words that come out of your mouth, you have to be careful of what and when and where you say it. Aruna mentioned 2 separations. There's actually 3. When you're in private, when you're in public, and when you're on social media now. So when we're in private, we could say whatever we want. We may not agree, but we can say it. When we're in public, we have to be careful of what we say, because the people listening, especially when you have an audience, when you have a following, what you say is important. Take America, for example, and Donald Trump. Fox News, for years, have been seasoning a specific segment of American population. with a specific type of dialogue. That when someone like Donald Trump comes on the scene, it is easy for him to do anything he wants, as if he's a god. Why? Because 30% at minimum of the population of America supports that particular type of dialogue, because they've been fed it for years. They've been fed to understand it, to believe it, to accept it as if it's literally biblical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
How I've seen the talk shows here on radio, not on social media. I haven't been on Facebook in a while.
But there are some talk shows that intersect. So they're on social media,
Right.
but they
That's
also are aired on radio. But please proceed. Yes.
That's kind of why I mentioned it. So
Yeah.
in terms of just the ones that come on radio, where any and everybody on the radio can hear you. What I've been hearing, especially in the political realm, not in the ladies' room type realm, gossip and banter, like Aruna said, she mentioned something and people run with it. Yeah, a lot of us are 5-year-olds. However, when
a lot of us are 5-year-olds.
We are. We have no self-control.
I like the metaphor you use. It's hilarious.
Our impulse control doesn't seem to be there, so that's fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to the political discourse in our country, these things can actually have life or death ramifications. And when we discuss politics in our country, we should be very mindful that it's not just a group of people hanging out drinking a beer. It's people that's taking this as law, as this is the word of God. Mm-hmm. And when we say things that to me are irresponsible or downright almost criminal, we need to be careful of these things.
But do you think that Grenada is at that stage though, where political rhetoric can rise to the level of the violence that we see in perhaps, let's say, a Jamaica, which has that type of garrison culture? I mean, people say things in the context of Grenada, but acting on those things, acting on that political rhetoric, I mean, we don't see that necessarily. What I hear you saying is that we ought to be concerned about that sort of thing.
Well, I've actually heard people who have a microphone on the radio, who speak to individuals here, who have a following, actually say to people things that if we were to follow those things, we would have a problem. For example, I've heard members of the media say things like, I think 2 election cycles now, if your children or people, your girlfriend, or people who live in your house, or people you support, vote the way you did not want them to vote, cut them off. Don't send home remittance, divorce them, break up with them. I've actually heard that on radio in Grenada. That's very disturbing. We're too small for that. We're not like Jamaica and them places. Almost everyone here is related. However, if you keep beating that drum over and over and over and over and over, it becomes to a point where that's the only song you sing. What do we do then? Do we wait till the drum beat is so loud that we can't ignore it anymore, and we're actually harming each other over which party we voted for? Or do we address it now before it gets to a point where me and you are actually pulling guns on each other? I personally would like us to have that dialogue before we're actually chopping each other up, and not afterwards. Because once the genie is out the bottle, as we have noticed, it is very, very, very difficult to put that genie, Trinidad, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Haiti, to put that genie back in the bottle. I'm not interested in that kind of work. Can we do preventative medicine? I like my arms. They look nice. They feed me and take care of me. I like to keep them on my body. I don't want to have a discussion with Brother Bob about when I used to have hands, because we allowed ourselves to run down a path that made no sense, and instead of addressing it, we just let it roll down the hill. The way we converse politically in this country on the radio is disturbing, and we need to address that and stop it. I can disagree with you politically on anything. I can disagree with your ideas. I can disagree with your ideals, your theories. And afterwards, we can still go have a beer if you drink and if I drink. Why? Because we understood something. The way we're discussing things, it's literally saying, husbands against wives, mothers against daughters, fathers against sons. That type of rhetoric is absolutely dangerous for a country like Grenada. We're too small. If we kick off that kind of violence here, we're done.
Okay, let us bring in someone who is on radio literally almost every day of the week, except the weekends. Kem, you're also on the radio on weekends, I believe, on Saturdays. Yeah. So let's hear your thought process. You've heard what Saisha said there. He's concerned that we are going down a particular dangerous road. What is your view on that?
Well, look, Mr. Williams is sharing his opinion, just as I am and others are. For me, controversy is a beautiful thing. You would not get everybody on your side. And I may not speak like how he does. I may not do it like him. I'm unique. Arona is unique. She has her own style, her own personality. In other words, Grenada is not Jamaica, not Trinidad, not those countries or islands where you have that kind of violence. And we would never go down that road. If he believes so, maybe he might be still thinking that we're in a different place. Grenada is not like that. And when it comes to politics, you discuss, you say what you got to say, you win or you lose, and then you make up. That is what Grenada is. You have
except I think he's saying that, not wanting to cut you, except I think he's saying it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. I think that's it.
But no one would be on the radio. And in Grenada, I have not heard anyone in Grenada actually saying to anybody to be violent or do this or do that would cause anarchy and chaos in the country. So some people may misinterpret. I want to assume he's talking about misinterpretation. But we have not seen that in Grenada. No. We have not seen that in Grenada. At the end of the day, you may say what you want to say, how you want to say it, your own style, your own way. Look, we are not Lou Smith in terms of the age of Lou Smith. When Lou Smith and those guys were wrong, it's as though they eat an English dictionary and they were just smooth. The reason why radio talk show programs like what I do is so big in Grenada and is so influential in Grenada is because I am unique. I do things differently. Kellen does things different. Dr. Bob does things differently. Arona does things differently. I love to listen to Arona in the ladies' room or when she's on radio, generally speaking, from WeFM to Power FM. In other words, you can't control certain things, but at the end of the day, I don't think we reach to the stage where, a person goes speak on radio and violence and they go, no.
But do you think, Mr. Williams also said that the people with the loud hailer, with the platform, also ought to have some level of responsibility in their rhetoric? What's your thoughts on that?
I think everything that you do, people would call my program, and when they say certain things, I said, look, it's unconfirmed. It has, I brand it or tag it as alleged. Let me investigate. Let me look into it. In fact, the reason why there was attempts about 3 times from Dr. Mitchell Godong, who tried to sue me and he just couldn't get through. Because if a person calls the program and they say certain things, I would correct them. I would guide them accordingly. I have been around this business for almost 9 years, right? And what I have been doing to many people is controversial. To many people, they would say, but Kem Jones, but you ain't afraid, you're not afraid they sue you. You're not afraid that you end up having to pay X and pay Y. In other words, there was this fear of expression, of opening up about talking about issues and being blunt, being straight up, being in the face. It's just a unique way. That's the person's brand of saying certain things. There are plenty different ways to say certain things. So a person might say, well, he's crooked. And I would turn around and say, no. I would say that person is worse than a corkscrew. But I mean, a corkscrew is one of the most crookedest thing you could find, for want of a better word or term expression here, on the face of the earth. So there are many ways to put down certain things. And mind you, what I have done in the last 8-9 years, you could say what you want. Kem Jones has made a significant impact in the homes of Grenadians in Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and in the diaspora by bringing information, disseminating information, having a meaningful conversation. You may not like my gesticulation, my tonation, the way I put it down. In fact, when Williams was actually referencing what a person said about family and cut them off, and he was actually speaking about me. But he was not brave enough to say Kem Jones. He got that on Kem Jones' program. But he got it on my program because the election was too serious. That last election, too serious to be joking around with it. And if a person in the diaspora, right, a family member who send remittances, money and barrels and food and everything of that sort to a family member in Grenada, and that family member overseas is saying to that family member, look, the reason why I'm sending this to you is because poverty, you're vulnerable, you're X, you're Y. And they explain to them why they're vulnerable and why they're in poverty and who actually keeping them in poverty. Why should they then go and vote for the person or party who keeps them in poverty and depend on the person overseas to send them 500 US every month or a barrel or two? In other words, that point that I made was that, look, this is serious business. And you have to send that message to your family members and friends who you assist, who you support, and say to them, hey, look, I am taking care of you, I'm assisting you. But I want you to assist yourself by putting a government in place who would focus on poverty alleviation, who would focus on job creation, who would move Grenada forward in such a way that we, the people, will become prosperous and opportunities will flow. So while, again, Mr. Williams, my good partner, he's my good boy, I believe he misunderstood that harsh point that I made.
But I think, and again, to sort of piggyback on what you said there in terms of the rhetoric, certainly people have a right to vote for who they want to vote for. Philosophically, you have a different position in terms of how people should vote. Yeah, that is a conversation that we can have.
But we still agree, Dr. Bob, that a person has a right to influence. A person has a right.
Of course, because people have constituencies, and you do have to lobby on behalf of your constituency.
Correct.
Of course, absolutely. In the democratic process, we ought to do that. But Mr. Williams, were you directly referring to your good friend? He calls you your good friend here. When you talk about rhetoric, is Kem Jones one of those people that you believe is contributing to a coarsening of the rhetoric? Is it him alone? Who are the others? Mr. Williams?
Well, yeah, I'm here. So I'll address, first of all, the bravery part. Kem, it is not a lack of bravery to call someone's name. If you understand the conversation we're having, the conversation was about dialogue and discourse and having it in a humble manner. So instead of calling people's name to stray off topic, if we can stay on topic, that'd be better. But since you challenged my bravery, Kem, you have said some very, very, very interesting things here. And if you're not careful with how and what you say on radio, you will cause people to fight here. Since you said let me accuse you. You have said, if your son or daughter does not vote the way you want them to, kick them out the house. You have said, if your wife or husband or boyfriend, let me finish accusing you, and then you can take the mic.
Yeah.
If your husband or wife, divorce them. If they send remittance, don't send it. What I'm saying to you, Kem, is you're not the only one saying this. That's why I didn't want to mention your name. I do not need to mention all the other names, Sheldon Scott. There's a bunch of people here that when they get on radio, they say some things that are questionable at best. So all I'm saying to you and all the other talking heads in Grenada, from whatever name they are, I do not need to name individuals. It's the message that we're talking about. This is what I was trying to get to. This is what I thought this dialogue was about. How you message a thing does not necessarily have to do with the messenger. However, if the messenger is not careful, he can lead a mass of people to war. They can start fighting against each other for nothing other than misunderstood dialogue, rhetoric. And you have a powerful position, as you have eloquated just a minute ago. You said you have played a significant role in the houses and the lives of people in Grenada. Your voice echoes every day and night in those houses. Have you ever heard of the German theory? If a lie is said long enough, it becomes the truth. Kem, and all the other people like yourself, all I'm asking is, when you have political dialogue, disagree disagree. When you actually have information to accuse someone and direct it, do so. When you don't like a party and their platform, tear it down to cinder. But do it in a way that when we're finished, we can still walk around as men and women of Grenada and not have to walk around as, who is that boy?
But
What's that girl?
Mr. Williams, Mr. Jones would say that is exactly what he's doing. But I suppose your theory is just the manner in which he goes about doing it, or not him alone, but other.
Well, when you say things like "don't give them a job," that's dangerous. Because let's say, for example, you don't give them a job, and then you lose power. What happens? How long does that cycle of nonsense carry on before we actually start to fight? No matter how you cut it, all of it leads to a point of violence.
Yeah, but
regardless of how whether it's from a financial standpoint, whether it's from an emotional standpoint, all of it leads to violence.
You see, Dr. Bob.
Yes, Mr. Jones, yes.
Yeah, my good friend is taking all of this out of context.
Okay.
So when he loosely say, well, don't give them a job, he's not explaining in a broader context where this came from, what was being discussed. Or when he says about don't send remittances or divorce them or put them out, he's not explaining the conversation. Remember, I am on radio speaking for an entire hour, and many a times on sometimes one subject matter or two. So many things could be said in that conversation, but to cherry pick and to say, well, don't give them a job. What is he referring to? Don't give who a job, right? In other words, the viewers, the audience must understand the context of the conversation. When I spoke, as I repeated, and I want to repeat it, when I spoke about how serious the election was, I stated with no apology, and categorically so, that if you overseas send remittances, send money, send barrels, send clothes, you take care of that family member. And the reason why you're doing so is because they can't find the opportunity to do so themselves. They just can't. Poverty, unemployment, hardship, and just name it. I stated, here is an opportunity to effect change that can ease up the burden of you, the people in the diaspora, by putting in place a government who will focus on people and lifting up these people from where they are. And how do you do it? By influencing, by persuading your family members and friends back home. And in fact, I want to congratulate them, Dr. Bob, on your platform for doing just that. Because they did so, and it was successful. They came back in droves, in numbers, and voted, and their family members and friends did so because they understood the bigger picture. The larger picture here was to help them to move to the next level where they can be more prosperous, where they can, get opportunity. So that was the context of the conversation, right? It's not that you got to kick somebody out or throw somebody out. No. It's deeper than that. It's broader than that. So I'm saying sometimes you have to understand the context. When I speak about don't give them work, I am referring to a situation where you have, in any small democracy, you have folks in government who supports a party and they're political activists. They came into government with that party, and they came in with the party, and they know that they're politically exposed. They're in a contract or something temporary. And when the party goes, they go. If they're competent and qualified, you need that person back, well, so be it. That they have a skill that you desire. But that is what happens in nearly every small island and even in the big United States of America around the world. Your party wins the election. They bring in their team to effect or to implement their agenda and their plans and their programs. That's what it is. So it's not a matter of, bringing in NNP folks to do certain things. No. I am simply saying it is what happens all around the world. Your party wins. You bring in your people. When and if they lose, they go. And you bring in your people. We have seen that under the NNP for the last 20-something years. If it changes, if you want to go based on competence and merit, and you don't care if the person is NNP and NDC or PLM or GLP, and the person is serious about country, then it's a different ball game, right? I would love to see that day when a person who, even if they support NNP or PLM or GLP, and they're hired by government, they operate professionally and they move with that agenda, not looking at their party and being biased in that particular light. That's just my viewpoint.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Aruna here. Aruna, you've been sitting on the sidelines. Certainly, you're not a political talk show host as Mr. Jones is, but certainly you are on radio as Saisha said. Your Ladies' Room program is much more of a light-hearted program, but there are occasions when you also address serious issues. But let us talk about political rhetoric in general, or just rhetoric in general on radio. Do you think that what we're seeing here, as Mr. Williams has been sort of telegraphing here, that we're going down a dangerous road, or do you think that that is embedded in the body politic of Grenada in general, that what we're seeing or what we're hearing on radio is just a reflection of the culture?
I have to sort of disagree with Saisha a bit here, because for someone who's been in radio for this long, if you were to pay serious attention, you would realize it's like time and place. It's like a season. When we're in the heat of an election season, you would get people coming out. People will be in the emotions. They would want their party to win. So everybody comes out with that sort of energy. And when you have different energies meshing, of course, you know what happens. But I don't think we're at the point where I would say we're going down a dangerous road, because even if people are emotional about their parties, if you pay attention, people just talk on social media. They say what they have to say, but you don't see it reflected in society in terms of you're seeing people fighting, you're hearing of deaths, people being attacked. People will probably attack you verbally, but it has never gotten to the point, well, at least that I know of, physically. I've never heard of any altercations, people beating each other from different parties, as compared to the Jamaica and, and the Trinidad, where you hear violence, physical violence amongst different party supporters. Like, as I said, everybody might be passionate, everybody might be, supporting a particular party. So of course you'd want your party to win, and you would say things that would be in the favor of your party, or you would say things that would discredit the other party. Sometimes, yes, one would admit the supporters could be a bit disrespectful in terms of attacking people's families and their personal lives. But like I said, that's more on a verbal level, but never physical. I've never heard of any minister saying, well, their property was attacked, or any supporter of any party, attacked them or met them on the street and went up in their faces. And, I've never heard of that. So if it happened, I've never heard of it. So I don't think we've gotten to that stage where we're going down, this dangerous road that Saisha is referencing. Everybody who listens to Kem knows Kem and his passion and where it lays. So I take that for what it is. Kem is passionate about his party, and he has made no bones. He's never hidden his support for the NDC. So of course he's going to come out and say things in his own passionate way about what he sees and how he feels, and there are people who will relate to that, and of course agree with him. And when their energies mesh, you're going to get that sort of that sort of feeling. But if you were to look at it from the time our elections held to now, you would realize, you'll just have little banter in here and there, but for the most part, people have gone back to their regular routine, back to their regular lives, and doing what they're supposed to do, and the government is out there doing what they're supposed to do. And basically, Kem is like the only person really speaking on politics right now, and he has his audience who follow him and support that. So,
well, I think the folks at Real FM would disagree with you, because they also have a political talk show as well. That I sometimes have to listen to, because I was the object of criticism by both Mr. Jones, by the way, and Real FM as well. Again, as you said, you roll with the punches, I respond to it, and I move on. But please proceed, yes.
Yes, okay. So, well, I wasn't even aware that Real FM, my bad, I don't really get to listen to.
Okay, well, but they do have a political, Master Carl, I believe, is the gentleman's name.
Oh,
yes.
oh. Well, So from then to now, even if they are, what I'm saying is you don't see this big hullabaloo like it was compared to the election period. People would still listen, tune in, see what they have to say, but they move on. So it's not a case of, where every day people are just on radio fighting and quarreling and, going back and forth and threatening each other to the point where it gets physical. We know how emotional we can be when things don't go away or when we want things to go away, and I take it for what it's worth with a pinch of salt, and I keep it pushing. But I really wouldn't agree and say that we're going down that's the Christian.
Let us talk about, and I'll bring the full panel back here. Let us talk about just responsibility in the context of current laws, defamation laws. Mr. Jones, you said you were the subject of different attempts at lawsuits. We do have an Electronic Crimes Act in Grenada to the extent that it applies to broadcast. That is something that that needs to be explored a little bit. But how do we ensure that we protect ourselves legally? Because I know, for example, the previous prime minister, the previous administration, they were very quick with the pre-action letter.
Well, I've been
Right?
subject to only one. So, Mr. Jones, several. I've only had one back in my day when I really did like political. And I think that is what made me sort of took a back seat where political programming is concerned, because I remember when I was on BFM, I was hosting a program of that sort, and Mr. William Joseph and Chester, help me, was this her name again?
Chester Humphrey?
Yes, was guest on different occasions, and Mr. Joseph took offense to something that was said by Mr. Humphrey. And 3 or 4 years, almost 6 years, we've been in and out of court, numerous mediation. Finally, we got it sorted out. But even though I was the mediator, I was not the one who said anything. I was pulled in because I was the host of the program. And even though a disclaimer was played saying, the views expressed are that of, guests, blah, 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 not of the station, we were still held.
It's still aired on the station. So fundamentally, it's your responsibility at the end of the day.
To what transpired. So the station and myself, we were summoned to court, and almost 5 or 6 years later, finally last year, we got to a resolution after several mediation and what. We finally came to a conclusion. So that is one of the things that you have to be extremely careful of, because like I said, it's almost like a battlefield and everybody wants their side to win. So you would say things, sometimes you're not even sure of the authenticity of it. You're not even sure. You probably heard second, third, or fourth hand along the way, and you came on the air and repeated, and the person can take offense to it if it's not true. Whether it's true or not, as long as they take offense, they have a right to protect their good name. So it's something that you always have to constantly bear in mind, that when you're on air, what you're saying, and make sure you use key terms to protect yourself. But even that is not 100% security. You could still you could still get your day in court as a result of it. So I think it's more doing your research and understanding your guest and what direction to lead the conversations in, and when to pull and stop, and to avoid certain things. But that is one of the reasons why I decided not to, go down the political road and sort of steer in another direction.
And Mr. Jones, your program is, as I said, it's also aired on different radio stations in Grenada, and I believe in the diaspora as well in New York. Yes. How do you safeguard yourself from litigation, from defamation litigation that you yourself indicated was brought against you in the past?
Yeah, well, for me, I would listen to the callers, because when I speak, no one can sue me, because I would research my stuff thoroughly and I would use certain words to protect me left, right, and center, because the disclaimer that we use on radio, they're really mitigative. They're really to mitigate when you get yourself in deep waters. You can actually say, well, look, we put this thing out there to protect station and protect the individual. So we were not intentionally doing this. to harm you or anything of that sort. So if you're charged 50,000, for example, or if they say, well, we go charge you 50,000, but then you kind of have to put that in there so that you can consider. So you can maybe get a 30,000 or maybe a 40. It depends on how you look at it. But for me, what I would do when I listen to the callers, because they can say anything. They have a phone, and when they say what they say, it's hard to take it back. So I would, if I realize that they're saying something that might land me in problems, because I somewhat at the basic level, when it comes to knowing a little thing or two about, libel and slander and so on. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm somewhat legal minded where that is concerned. So I would either quickly say, this is unconfirmed. I will research it. And if it is true, I will come back and see if it's true. If it is false, I will come back and say it's false, right? Or it's alleged, but sometimes I say straight out, it's unconfirmed. I prefer to see that. In other words, I clear myself and I clear the station immediately. If I go, I do the research and I come back, I said, hey, this is what it is. And I make sure I have facts to back it up. But generally speaking, boy, you could do all that and still be dragged before court, as Aruna rightly said, because sending a pre-action letter, that's the easiest part. Can the person stand up in the court and win? That's a next story. For example, I was listening and recording the Plead Your Cause program on WeFM, like I normally do. I would record nearly all the programs. The program Up North that you referenced a while ago, because I want to be in the know. I want to be on top of things. I want to be the best in this business, right? And I want to hear what they're saying. I want to know what they're doing and so on. So I recorded that program, and someone called in. They didn't say Kem Jones, but they said Kem and radio. And the host of the program repeated what they said. It was, worse than slanderous. And all I did was send a letter to the station, send a letter to the individual, and the matter was brought to court, right? And we reached as far as the master, right? And I indicated to the master judge, I am in this business too, and I don't want any money. All I need from the host of the program and the station is to apologize. But of course, they have to cover my lawyers, right? Or the lawyer that was acting on my behalf, because we had letters back and forth, but they reached to the point where we in front of a master judge and money has to be paid. But I kept the high road, right? By saying, look, I don't want any money from the individual. All I want them to do is just apologize on the same program for a week. And they did that the first time incorrectly. And I think the second week they did it incorrectly again. So about 2 or 3 weeks, they were actually apologizing to me on that said radio program. But I didn't do it out of malice. I just did it to clear my name. And because I know what they said was fallacious, it was false, it was, you understand, and emotions. Callers call because Kem Jones, I'm in the talk show business and pushing an NDC agenda, and some of them pushing an NNP, meaning the callers were calling in as pro-NNP supporters and so on. And nothing wrong with that. But for me...
Yeah, but you said nothing wrong with that, but I've heard how you handle some callers. You tell them go and bait or
that's
or whatever it is.
That's satire. That's a little humor. In Grenada, talk radio, controversy makes Kem Jones. And talk radio, generally speaking, when people attack me and they say certain things about me, I use it to get 300 or 400 more people to view or listen to the program. I thrive on that controversy. Some people hate it, but I love it. In other words, every time something goes viral, it's about Kem Jones, right? And I love it. There was once when Dr. Mitchell sent me the pre-action letter to drag me to court, I went and I looked for a Victoria's Secret panty, a brand new one, and a green boxers. It was somewhat tear up or bust up or whatever. And I gave him an option. I said, you're not going to get any money, but you can either choose the Victoria's Secret panty if you want that, or choose the green bust up boxers and bring it by the tailor or whoever so they can sew it and you can wear it. You would not get any. And some people say, well, Kem Jones shouldn't say that. Well, when they said so, I had a fundraiser, I had an event out of it. And if you see people, because controversy to me in talk radio, you can't be a Lou Smith in 2022. You can't be, Paul Roberts, my good boy, and a Stanley Charles and a Eddie Frederick I mean, Eddie Frederick, I could tell you, he has evolved. It's a different vibes. You get life and vibes when he's on, even now. But I'm saying that it has to be more than that. It has to be vibes. It has to be a different kind of energy. And so controversy, let me repeat, controversy sells for me. I am volunteering my time and effort on the programs that I do. I'm not taking ads or anything of that sort. I keep things going that way. So I really have nothing much to lose, except to connect with people. And look, they believe what I have been doing for many, many years. And when I say many, many years, about 8 years, 9 years, right? And I keep doing what I'm doing. And right now, as Aruna, just deviating a little, Aruna made a very good point, Dr. Bob. The politics thing is kind of seasonal, eh? You know, you pelt a liquor punch, you do your little thing, and that's seasonal. But right now, we are discussing issues. We are going deeper into issues, right? Not going after that person, attacking that person. And it was seasonal. The election cycle is over. Now let's deal with issues. Let's converse. Let's talk about issues. But you know, that's how it is in Grenada.
Let's bring back Saisha here. Mr. Jones is saying that in the 21st century, in 2022, in order for talk radio to thrive, it has to court some level of controversy. Your thoughts on that idea? Pick up on that for me.
I agree. Salaciousness sells. As it said, if it bleeds, it leads. However, my deviation is not about whether it bleeds to lead. Again, it's the rhetoric, the specific words. So, Brother Ken, you've assumed some things about me. You said I misunderstood you because I'm cherry picking certain things. Brother, I've listened to your show every single day, every day, for about 6 straight years. Every day, every morning, every evening. So please don't accuse me of something you don't understand. I have listened to your show, brother.
Yeah, I was only.
And what I'm saying to you, I've heard your right. I've heard what you said in context. I didn't take it out of context. I didn't cherry pick a specific thing. What I'm saying is the way in which, even up to now, like just a couple of days ago, I heard one of your shows, or last week, I think, where there was it last week? Maybe a couple of weeks ago. I think the former prime minister may have had a birthday party for his mom or something like that. And the dialogue you were using, again, traitor. All I'm saying is, Ken, if we have to do our jobs politically, we can do our jobs without alienating people and making them feel they need to be respectful.
Correct. Not traitor. I said sheep in wolf clothing. Right?
You were taking. Sorry.
Yes.
Right.
Sheep.
But you said you were there. You said you were there to take names of those people to make sure who they were to remove them.
No. I never said so. I said I went at the event because it was a public event, and I went to observe. And there were people who were there, public officers and so on. When they saw me, they ducking, baving, and weaving. And there are a lot of people who are sheep in wolf clothing. That's all.
Yeah, but Mr. Jones, people, this is still a free and democratic society. I mean, people have a right to freely assemble. So why would there be a need to go there? Why would there be a need to go there to take notes?
No. I never went there to take notes. No. My good friend said I went there to take notes. I'm not this old-time journalist to go and write stuff down. But I'm only saying to you, brother, this was a public event, publicly invited event. You can go, you can pop in. In fact, I was warmly received. For those who took the thing out of context, I was warmly received when I went there. But
see, you're straying from what I'm talking. I'm not talking about the public event part. That's all well and good. Everyone has a right to go wherever they want to and participate in whatever they want to. What I'm saying is, when you say things like "don't send remittance if they didn't vote," that's intimidation. If I have a family member, regardless of I have family members that literally, if I was to just choose based on their decision making, I probably would never speak or do anything to them again. But do you know what I can't do? Cannot say to my family, who I claim to love, that my love is conditional on how they behave or the choices they make. I can guide them. I can inform their decisions. But I can't, I do not understand where I get off my horse telling my son, my mother, my friend, if you do not vote the way I do, we can't be friends. This is not only in this, let me finish. This is not only in the season of political realm. I have listened to you every day. This continues throughout the year, Ken.
Yeah, but here
day after day, this drumbeat keeps beating. And I've seen your evolution over time.
Right, but here it is.
Where this rhetoric, as you say, what you call it, I call it salacious. You called it, what was the term you used? There was a thing for
controversy. Yes.
So I see the trajectory. I understand what sells. All I'm saying to you is be mindful of the words you use when you are giving people what looks like a message, a behavior pattern, which only can lead a certain way, no matter how you cut it, no matter what we say, whether it's seasonal, whether it's year round, whether it's just a moment. This is not the first time I've heard it. And when you say you are in the people's house every day and you have a significant role to play, and you've played a significant role, it is incumbent on you to be mindful of that rhetoric that can lead someone to
get is my brother.
Mr. Williams, let him get a word in. Yes.
And I respect that. I respect that, and you seem to be a religious listener and follow the program. And thumbs up. But here is my brother. That election had gone there, based on what you're saying, because you're kind of still sticking there. I'm saying to you, I will say it again. If the election was next week, let's say it was not June the 23rd. If I had a brother, a mother, a sister, a cousin, even my lady in my house, and she decided to vote outside of getting change in this country, I would have a problem. That is how serious that election was. You may not like it, but I said so clear cut. And I'll give you a real example. I have an aunt. She voted for the NNP. She's a bad NNP. But she came at a particular bar, and I said to the bartender, give everybody a drink and don't give her.
I remember that story.
Don't give her any drink. But
I remember that story. I was looking at this
because the election was too serious to joke around with. Because when we explained to the same aunt, said, look, you retire, you got nothing, but you're running behind these people. Look at the condition of your road, right? And we can go on and on. You have 2 children. They applied to go to get scholarship. They didn't give them, but you're a supporter of them. What? In other words, we were looking at a broader thing. It is not that you put in on a jersey and you're big and you're bad for a particular party. But come on, you can't tell me you're supporting the slave master and you want me to come and give you everything that you want in that house. Something has to be fundamentally wrong if one holds to that position. I am simply saying, maybe my tonation, maybe the words I use, maybe I come across harsh at times, But
you do. I mean, you've gone after journalists. You've gone after me. I mean, you've gone after a lot of people. I mean, you said the other day that you want to crush journalists. Of course, I listened to that.
Dr. Bob.
But when you said, but of course, let me put it in context. You did say politically. You did say politically that you didn't mean literally. But again, who is to say that someone does not interpret that in a particular way as being literal? Yeah.
But you agree that I did not say that I'm coming and crush anybody.
Literally, no, you did not. No. It was a figurative expression. Yes.
Right. Correct. Yes. And and that's the beauty of radio. Maybe there are 1 or 2 people, as you rightly say, maybe they misinterpret me, okay. But at the end of the day, if we go into any space and we open this thing up, you'll realize I was simply saying there are journalists or quote-unquote so-called journalists who are out there trying their utmost to derail the transformational agenda to make sure that the NDC fails. And they would pull out certain things, publish certain things just to get their audience or their people to interpret it in a particular way. And I said, if they believe they would stop the transformational agenda from happening or from people benefiting from this new regime, they will be crushed, and not by me, and figuratively speaking, they will be crushed, but by the people. The people going to find them out. The people are going to understand the agenda that they are pushing because Grenadians are happy. At this point in time, Grenadians are happy. So I was speaking in that light that they are reporters, so-called reporters and journalists. I'm not talking about you, Dr. Bob. You're in a different category. So if you believe that I was referring to...
no. If you were referring to me, I know you would be very clear about saying that you refer to me. I know that you are. You say what's on your mind.
Come on, I'm not going to refer to you.
Yeah.
You're in a different category, right? You're above that level. But I am simply saying they are reporters, journalists, and they call themselves all kind of names who are actually pushing an agenda. Kem Jones came out firmly and say, I, Kem Kendon Jones, support the NDC and the NDC's agenda 8 years and so ago. I never hide. Everybody knew where I stood, right? So when I spoke on the program, people would say, yes, boy, that man is a NDC, or that man supporting the NDC or that kind of stuff. But there are people who say, well, they're journalists, they're reporters and so on. Okay, but when you dig deeper, they support the NNP, but they're not coming out and say that. Just read their publications, their writings and everything else, and even the news items. That's all you have to do, and then you get to know what's going down. So I am simply saying, don't hide. Sometimes it's just good to just come out and say who you support and let people respect you for that.
Okay, folks, this is a very important conversation. Again, we really have to keep a pulse on, the evolution of media, because these days, Aruna, as you would appreciate, as Kem would appreciate, the technology evolves so rapidly. And I see it every week. Every week there is a particular update, even me in the context of my own reporting and in the context of my own teaching and educating. I have to be kept up to speed with my students because sometimes they introduce new journalistic technology to the classroom that I'm not even aware of. So what we want to do, folks, is to take a quick break, and then we would come.
Can I beg your indulgence because I have to go do my program in the next 8 minutes.
That's okay. We would take a quick break and we'll have some final wrap-up comments. Just stand by. Yes. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
These are the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
And welcome back, folks. And at this time, we want to close the program with some closing comments from our guests. That's Mr. Kem Jones, Mr. Runa Neptune, and Mr. Saisha Williams. Since Mr. Jones has to go, I would give you the opportunity for some closing comments.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Bob. I want to express my appreciation to you for inviting me on your program. I believe you're doing an excellent job in terms of bringing the information to our Grenadian people home and abroad. I want to also say to my good friend, Mr. Williams, I look forward to having a conversation with him, further conversation, because I see him as a good friend. We might disagree from time to time, but I listen to him on many different subject matters, and I believe he has depth, he has content, he believes, in Grenada, he wants good for Grenada. And I look forward to having a conversation with you in going forward. Well, Aruna is my good girl. That would never change. And Aruna, just stay sweet.
Absolutely.
Thanks, brother.
All right, Mr. Jones, thank you so much. And then I want to go over to you, Saisha, for some closing comments.
Well, again, thank you for having me. Brother Kem, thanks for the words. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to that dialogue whenever we can. Aruna, of course, as always. It's good to see you again. Love that you found the keys to the room. The only thing that I would leave it with is that once once we get in front of that mic, as I said earlier, I think it's incumbent on us to be very, very mindful of what comes out of our mouths, especially when it comes to political rhetoric. Most people lean towards the voice that brings that message for explanation, for clarity. And if that voice is not cautious, that voice can play a really, really significant role into doing some disastrous things, even though they specifically did not do it. So we just need to be more mindful of how we spew the rhetoric.
There is a truism that with great power comes great responsibility, and that is something that I take to heart.
And I think that's the essence of my closing. We need to be really responsible of the power we have with that mic. It's a very powerful tool.
Absolutely.
So thanks. You guys have a good night.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Aruna, some closing comments from you. Thank you again for indulging on such short notice. We certainly are always happy to have you on the Bub Report.
Thanks again, Dr. Bob, and matter of fact, you ended the way I wanted to end.
You're breaking up there. Is it me? I can't seem to hear you there.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes. So go ahead.
Yes. I was saying thanks again for having me, and you basically said what I wanted to say to end in terms of, despite everything, we still have a responsibility. When we open the mic, what we say, people, we have a following. Some may or may not accept that, but we do have a following, and for whatever it's worth, people will take that and whatever we say and run with it in whatever direction. So we still have to remain cognizant of that fact, that we have a responsibility to disseminate information that we know to be factual, and not so much, just for the sensationalism side of it, but also, to disseminate information. Yes, we can entertain, but we also have to be, responsible with what we are putting out there, as people on air or on social media platforms or whatever the case might be. So I hope we can have this conversation again, because I think there's lots more we can cover where that concerns the evolution of media, and of course, the role of media and journalism, and radio jockeys and what have you. I think we need to have a conversation, particularly on that, because to me there's more radio jockeys than radio personalities, broadcasters on air, and that too could be one of the reasons we have some of these issues that we are having. So I look forward to that as well. So thank you so much again, everyone.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, we want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Bub Report. As a reminder, this week's episode of the Bub Report was pre-recorded. So when you're watching this program on Sunday, just know that this program was actually pre-recorded before. And that is why we were not able to take your comments live on air. We do apologize for that. The program will be back next week as a full live program where we'll be able to entertain your comments on air. So on behalf of the hardworking producers of the Bub Report, I'm your humble servant, Dr. Kellen Bub, wishing everyone a pleasant week. Bye-bye.